It's time to feel alive again. Extraordinary Lovers Luxury Couples Retreat is designed to ignite your sexuality, communication, and ease with your partner, all while enjoying the bounties of paradise. Join world-class Tantra teachers Laurie Handlers and Michael Gibson as they share how to access new levels of ease, trust, and intimacy. Drink in the gorgeous oceans and beaches of Roatan's most luxury private resort. This small by design retreat will not only make you feel safe to explore with your partner, but also find true depth and connection with other couples in attendance. This retreat includes 7 days and 6 nights of accommodations, all your meals included, and full days of transformational processes and teachings, all situated on a picturesque, clothing-optional beach and forest. Book now to reserve your spot in Roatan with us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laurie Handlers, and you are listening to another episode of Sex and Happiness, a show about your sex and your happiness, and of course, about my sex and my happiness. This show grows me like it grows you. And I thank you for being my loyal and wonderful listeners. I love when I travel around the world and people say, I've been listening to your podcast. That always feels great. So today we have a wonderful topic, but first let me tell you who I'm speaking with, and then you'll have to wait for a second. You'll have to wait for it to hear what we're talking about. So today, I'm interviewing Heather Montgomery. She's a sex tech entrepreneur. We're going to find out what that means. And she's the founder and CEO of Please Me, an affinity portal for pleasure and sexual wellness. So we're going to find out what all of that is. And as well as Heather and I are going to be talking about a subject that I've never talked about before on this show, and that's anonymity in exploring sexuality, like what it means to be able to be anonymous and explore your sexuality, which I know lots of people do, but I never talked about this as a subject. So Heather, welcome to Sex and Happiness.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and honored to be interviewed by you with your illustrious career and amazing things that you've done in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you for saying it's sweet. It occurs to me like just breathing, Well,
it's because of people like you that I'm able to do what I do, because you paved the way. This industry has been the most challenging of any I've ever been in many, many different ways. And so I understand and realize how 20 years ago, it might have been 10 times as rough, right? And so thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for even acknowledging that. I mean, I could never sit at a party or at a bar and tell people what I did because they wouldn't get it.
No.
Like I'd go, they'd say, what do you do? And I'd say, I teach a kind of yoga. And they'd say, like, what? Well, I do downward dog and, warrior pose and whatever. And I go, not that.
Not that kind.
And they would go, then what? And I'd say, it's about sex. And they go, like the big question marks would go on their face, And then I'd say, have you heard of Sting? He says he makes love to his wife for 10 hours. Wow. And they go, that?
I never heard that.
Oh, God, yeah.
A newfound respect for Sting.
That was the biggest thing when Tantra first became famous in the West. Yeah. The only person anyone had ever heard of who made reference to it was Sting.
Yeah. And who didn't love Sting?
Everyone loved Sting, but later Sting retracted that story, I think. So I don't even know. I don't even know what happened. But he said he made love to Trudy for 10 hours. And if people heard that, they were like, they filed it somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then they would later try to recall, who was that said that again? And what kind of a freak is he or whatever, They mentioned it also in American Pie 2.
Oh, okay.
It was mentioned. Something about Tantra was mentioned in American Pie 2. And so that was, and then Meet the Fockers came.
Yes.
And so Barbara. People would say, what do you do? And I'd say, did you see Meet the Fockers? They'd go, yeah. I'd say, I'm Barbara Streisand.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great way to explain it, because people get it. They love that movie. It was a cult
Yeah.
classic. Yeah.
That was it. That was what ended up explaining it. Anyway, so yeah, I was part of the groundbreaking. I call myself a general in the sexual revolution.
I love it. And we call ourselves the digital sexual revolution. Please.
Yeah.
So you
So I
can be
wanted,
my general any day.
great. That's
Yay.
great.
And I'll be yours, I should say. Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll be co-generals.
There you
We'll go
go.
into some generals or admirals club together.
Absolutely.
Smoke cigars and drink
Yeah.
martini.
I'm putting that on the mission statement. Create an admirals club.
Yeah, we do.
Women of sex tech. Yeah.
We
and
do.
Sexual revolution. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit before we get to the actual subject of like being anonymity and then that tongue tie, anonymity and exploring sexuality. What is I guess you're going to tell because it's a bit, because you said digital sex tech entrepreneur. What does being a sex tech entrepreneur mean? Because that's a big tongue tie.
Yeah. It means that you must be crazy.
I have a bell for that.
I think I need to have my head examined. That's what that means. No. I mean, today technology obviously has changed the way we do many, many things, like rent a hotel room, get a cab, have an alarm on our phone versus a alarm next to our bed, a camera and a phone. I mean, now we do everything from one device, and that's technology in consumer goods. So sex tech is a little more specific to using technology to solve sex issues, problems, obstacles to healthcare, to education, to wearables, to better understand what's happening for people. So any technology that's designed specifically to support sexual health and wellness is considered sex tech. And I say I must be crazy because women in tech, femtech, is already a tough go because you're in a world where there was historically a lot of men creating technology and being at the head and the lead of that. So now women were coming into the space, and so femtech came about, and products that specifically solve problems for women. And then you add a more specified layer to that, and that would be sex tech, where it's handling that for sexuality, and not just for women, but for women,
for everyone,
any gender, any identity, really, that it's going to improve their sex life or their wellness.
Awesome. Can I just tell you right now, I'm falling madly in love with you.
Oh.
And I'm just saying this so that the world heard it. Anyone who hears it, they know that I'm good for my word. I probably have some platforms that I get invited to that I'd like to co-present with you.
I would be happy to. I just got goosebumps. So that's a great idea. And I'm so honored. And that's so nice of you.
I just so just so you know, this is so crazy, but I have to put this in here so that people who hear me on a regular basis hear me say this to you.
Yeah.
Most of my listeners know that I'm a radical life extensionist, or other people call us immortalists.
Yeah.
And I have made presentations on stages of 1,000, where I talk to 1,000 people on the benefits of sex for your health and how sex magic could increase your life. Mm-hmm. And the last time I presented this, and I've also presented it digitally in festivals online, I introduced virtual sex, robotic sex, and the Lamborghini of vibrators, Sibian, to people who would never have heard about things like this and said, this is the future of sexuality, and it's also going to solve some problems, even though it might frighten you.
Right.
And this is, what do they call it? Oh, transhumanism. There's a whole field in the field of life extension, which is transhumanism, which is Ray Kurzweil. And it's about, humans and AI and robotics meeting up and teaming up to live longer lives.
Yeah.
And sexuality is a huge part of that. And no one is talking about that. Well, no educator like me is talking about that. They're all still talking about, manual stimulation and you know, whether you watch porn or not. But I know that if you're what you say you are, a sex tech entrepreneur, you know more about this subject than I do. And so I'm excited.
I'm learning.
I'm so excited to thank you, Martha.
Yeah.
I
I'm
want
like,
to tell I want to tell people we met through Martha Lee,
yeah,
Dr. Martha Lee, who was my apprentice and who's been on the show a couple times. Uh,
amazing lady.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful human being.
So that I know I diverted us
No,
and
I think it's an appropriate topic. And I think that's really part of what you said. I came from the health and wellness and the life extension, particularly background. So genetics and cellular therapies and all kinds of things. So my background is, I'm most commonly mistaken for a doctor when they hear me talk, you know, because I used to train physicians. And so I have a really good working knowledge about what you're talking about.
mm-hmm.
And I really just shifted my focus to, instead of primary care, heart disease, diabetes, I was like, you know what? It was really lacking sexual health and wellness education in a manner that we feel safe and comfortable and can get reliable sources and not, you know, it's, where do you find those resources? Okay, Google searches only were getting me so far, and certain platforms I didn't really feel comfortable jumping on yet because I was, believe it or not, the most Midwestern, don't talk about it, didn't have an orgasm for many, many years, didn't masturbate till I was over 35. You know, like I had my reasons for creating this tool and this resource. And the number one reason was me. You know, I needed
I
it.
like I love you more.
Yeah. I'm like, if I need this, there must be millions and millions of other women that do too, because I would hear my girlfriends talk about their problems to a certain degree. I'm sure there were things they left out that they weren't comfortable talking about with other people or with, you know, somebody who wasn't a physician or an expert, and that's okay. And so, yeah, it was just really, I felt time to understand how to utilize technology to support our lives. And that you spoke about, the robots and the newer technology that's coming out for long distance sex or virtual sex is going to have an impact, as everything does. And
Yes.
you can be afraid of it, or you can learn about it and you can study it and you can find how to benefit from it. And so that's really what we wanted to be able to do, is bring all the thought leaders and the brands and the educators and the innovators together in one place where sexuality isn't censored, and where we're not in a community with 13-year-olds or my mother and my son and my neighbor, where I'm not going to feel comfortable talking about those things anyway, right? For the aforementioned reasons. So
Yeah.
that was really what it was all about for me. And ironically, even though I really wanted a place that was anonymous and credible, I've now had to learn how to express publicly how I feel about, you know, like, it's just so ironic,
Yeah.
right? But that's because I had the platform and the time to do the research, to explore, to come to my understanding of my core values and what I want to create, what I choose to believe, what I decide to explore next. And then when I'm ready to talk about it, I talk about it. Like Tantra is my next frontier of sexuality. I haven't gotten there yet. I started with little BDSM. I started with, you know, understanding my core values and getting over some of the shame and guilt. And so everybody's journey is a little bit different, but I'm so excited to learn about Tantra, but I can't tell the audience how wonderful it is because I really haven't experienced it yet. Right.
I like on the side, I have such a deal for you, but we'll talk about that later.
Great.
That's so
I love
exciting.
it.
That
Yeah.
is, I mean, that is so exciting because you're in it and you came in a different direction, but you are coming to the same place. And then because you'll learn about the platform that I entered through, you'll take that and make it better through what
Yeah.
you're doing. So that is like, to me, that's magic music to my ears. It's
And
wonderful.
we have a world on Please Me that's all Tantra Kama Sutra, you know, focused. It's
Didn't
just
know.
I haven't gotten there yet. You know, on my journey, my stops have been here, there, and I, you know, work a lot and I'm a single mom. So I have a certain amount of time and I've been
Yeah.
exploring for just over 2 years now. So you have your integration period as you learn things, and exploration and boundaries in those areas. And then you're like, okay, I like that. That's part of my tool shed. Now let's look at something else that I think is really interesting. And I want to have that strong emotional and full body orgasm and just really, embrace it. And I think for me, that journey was perfect to prepare me, because I'll be all the more able to really dive in and enjoy, because I'm already comfortable now with my body, with my, how I orgasm and what I need. And so there was a lot of learnings that came before, which I think will make that even more special when I get there.
What I want to underline in something that you said, it's like you said it, but you didn't quite say it all the way, which is because you took this position, you were forced in your own way to confront your own fears about coming out in public as who you are, as opposed to who you were brought up to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is like, I think everyone in this field, like, I don't know anyone in this field who didn't have to confront that and then was surprised by us hearing yourself saying something coming out of your mouth, going like, who's saying that? I would never talk about orgasm. I would never talk about this thing. And then because you're now a spokesperson,
basically,
you find yourself saying it and then going, well, that was interesting. I think I need a drink. It's just like, I never thought I'd be saying that in front of people.
Never.
So I get it completely. And when you were saying it, it's like, I was just like looking at your face and going like, oh, do I know?
Yeah. I mean, you must hear it all the time. People that are coming into their own sexually, right?
Yeah.
And why do you want to talk about a subject you feel inadequate in too, right? So when you feel like you have some inadequacies, the last thing you want to do is go talk about it in front of everybody. But now I'm feeling more empowered with my sexuality rather than having those feelings of inadequacy. So it became easier due to that confidence.
Beautiful.
If that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
And that progression. Yeah.
So let's look at the Please Me Affinity portal.
Yeah.
And and obviously it's for pleasure and sexual wellness, but it's gotta have something to do with anonymity.
It does.
Yeah, my guess is that it's people can sign on and be who they want to be without anyone else in their life if I'm guessing, without anyone else in their life knowing I did this. It's kind of like they can go to porn and do that. But it feels to me like you're talking about a different array of interests and things.
Yeah, so they have a screen name and an avatar, and we don't collect their private data. We don't ask their name, where they live. We don't use geo-targeting. We don't, interface with Facebook or Google, can't search our site. So there's ways that identity is protected. And obviously we want a place that's still safe with the anonymity to freely talk honestly and openly about your questions. So we built in higher permissions for the channels and brands, meaning there's more content that they can upload versus user generated content as a non, public facing member. And then they can obviously still have ways to interact and they can chat. And we have, of course, reporting tools and certain tools that block and scan for known offenses like child pornography and human trafficking, and you can report abuse. You can be just a voyeur. You can be in voyeur mode, which means you can surf around and see everything, but nobody sees you. Meaning they can't make friends with you. They don't see your posts. They can't get into your feed. You're just using it as
they can't say come here often,
Right. Yeah, they're kind of stuck with where, and they wouldn't know you're there anyway. But what I mean is, some people are like, I don't want to talk to somebody and answer questions. I'm just here to look. Like somebody says, oh, I want to be your friend. They don't want to reject people. And, so it's fine. You can use it either way to connect with a community of like-minded individuals. And by that, I mean, we take an analysis when we set you up on your account, kind of like the Harry Potter sorting hat, Gryffindor, Huff and Puff, so that you can answer a bunch of questions about your sexual preferences in bed regardless of gender, regardless of relationship style, regardless of preference, you know, of the gender or
Mm-hmm.
relationship style. And
Mm-hmm.
based on that, we divided the world of sexuality into 7 different parts, because one of the issues I had when I started to explore was I didn't feel like I was vanilla, and I didn't feel like I was kink. I really just didn't feel like I had a home. Um, Largely because I didn't understand fetish or kink, and where was the difference between kinky and non-kinky. And I'm not boring, quote unquote, you know, like I felt like people throw that term around to, and we're
Yeah.
like, I'm boring. No, I'm not boring. And not that it is boring, but I'm just saying they felt very labely to me,
Yes.
if that
Yes.
makes sense. And so, and I kind of felt like there was a really big jump to going from traditional bedroom, doggy style, missionary, potentially some oral sex, to extreme sadomasochism, right? And so there's just so much in between. And I thought people might want to take baby steps into exploring those worlds. And then because your sign, so there's a sign for each world and a name. And we named them after planets and stars in the galaxy, so that people would be like, what does that mean to be a Lara? What does that mean to be a Vega? Or, you know what I mean? And not have that prejudgment of themselves
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
going in, and then just, well, let me just explore what this world has in it. And also, if you are more conservative on the sexual exploration side, you might not want to see content with extreme sadomasochism showing up in your feed, right? That might turn you off and be like, ugh, don't want to see that. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's
But
just
you
a
might
personal
also,
preference.
but you also, I would say that most people have in some way been sexually traumatized in their life.
Right.
Now, you didn't have to be sexually violated to be sexually traumatized. You
Mm-hmm.
could be traumatized by something you saw. You
Mm-hmm.
could be traumatized by a story you heard.
Yeah.
You could be traumatized by a fantasy that you have that goes against your religion, that goes against your parents, that goes in. And so everybody has some of that trauma in their life. And if they're
Triggered.
confronted with that
Yeah.
without their consent is
Exactly.
everything. Yeah,
Everything. Yeah,
I get
that's our other big mission, is really elevating the conversation about consent and what that means.
it.
You know,
Hmm.
we talked about me being willing now, how I'm willing to come out and talk about my
Yeah.
sexuality. But if I start talking about the sex that I had with my partner last night and doing things that I'm comfortable talking about, he might not, on a public forum, he might be like, dude, you didn't ask me if you could tell people blah, 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 blah. And that's a
Right.
violation of consent too,
Right.
right? When it comes to your sexuality. So we feel that it's very important to understand consent and how to
Hmm.
discuss it and set it up properly and honor it, you know, not just in sex, really everywhere in our lives. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's important.
Well, that is um it's super exciting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just super exciting that you have that. So tell us a little bit about, so you gave us like the description of like the platform, and I mean, do you have things that are on this cutting edge too? I mean, is there
Oh, yeah.
stuff about robotics and things like that?
Yeah.
Maybe you could
So,
talk a little bit about that.
yeah. So brands and thought leaders come to us because they want to be a part of a sex positive platform that's not censoring, right?
Hmm.
Sexual content or education. And they want to be able to be their voice, be their brand, upload content. So of course, all of those high technology things require a good bit of education, because people have never seen them or heard about them. And so they decide to have a public channel. So they put out videos and education and content and articles. And, you know, we have everything from the VR to long distance teledildonics and AI with how smart devices can measure whether you're enjoying. I mean, you name it, it spans health and
Right.
pleasure. And so, for sure, we have a whole channel dedicated to it called The Science of Sex. Um,
Wow.
and then we have the Art of Sex, which is improving performance, and the Mating Game, which is dating and relationships and sexy travel and hot events, and Between the Sheets, which is, you know, industry news. and The Naked Truth, which is nonprofits doing good work in the space, around trauma and healing and sexuality.
I'm
And
so excited. I want to be on there.
yay, you should.
On there. I have so much to say about every one of those.
Yeah. So, and that's the beautiful thing is if you're really interested in those things, you can follow those channels that post the articles that we boost and introduce to people. And they go, oh, I like that. I'm really interested in learning more about AI. Let me follow that company, or robotic sex. Let me follow that company. And then you see that in your feed. It's much like Facebook. So when Forbes did an article on us last May, they compared us the delightfully erotic but way less creepy Facebook. That's what they called us. And so it really is that way to get educational and community interactivity going. And then you can also have private chats with new sex positive friends that you met online, or the thought leaders and the brands that you're following and interacting with their content.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Aggregating. We aggregate, everything and try to deliver it in a way that meets each individual's needs. That was really important to me because even though I know I said I built it for me, I wanted it to be a place for everyone. Like I didn't want things to divide us. So Please Me's a technology platform, and we're Switzerland when it comes to politics. And we built the platform so people with thought leadership and education and science can share their views. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that's not our area of expertise in every single one of these categories. So we just really promote healthful, educational, supportive tools, and we keep it focused on your sexual wellness and pleasure, and then we let the activists and the thought leaders share the important things with their followers and fans that they think it's important to know with what's going on.
So good. So great.
Yeah.
So I have some God, I could just probably talk to you all day, but we're not going to be able to do that in this podcast. And I have some, I'm just, I want to play geography with you and find out like who all is in there and who all do you still need to know.
Sure.
I mean, I'm like a bank of connections, but that will come later. Here's some, I want to know some statistics. I mean, like about how many members do you have? When did you started 2 years ago?
We started we started the company in December of 2017. We were building out what they call as an SRS and a BRD, which are technology planning documents. So we had to tell the coders what to code. We've coded every line from scratch because of privacy and anonymity and safety. So all of it was designed in-house. We kept it in the United States because we wanted it to be not a third party, but somebody working, for the company. And that process took about 4 months. So right before we were about to start creating the actual platform, Fosta Sesta came out, and that was in April of 2018. And I must have got four or five different calls. Said, well, now you can't do what you wanted to do. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't do what I want to do? We can't just let sexual health and wellness get shut down from the internet. No, we can't do that. So we set about looking for ways to really ensure that safety from child trafficking and child pornography and sex crimes against humanity in a manner that would really still support the healthy side, the good side, the wonderful side of sex and sexuality. So that took us about a year to build the entire platform, which is what we call a minimum viable product, which means we launched it. We have more that we want to do to it, but we wanted to get the basics out and get feedback from members and learn what people wanted and design it the way channels, brands, and members wanted to see things done. So for a year, we did that beta testing. We had the Forbes writer come in, and then we started allowing channels to build. So we have over 400 channels already from brands and thought leaders all around the world, actually. And then we have 8,000 members to date.
That was my next question.
Yeah, we're just about to, we did what's called a controlled beta, meaning you only limit the amount of people that come in because you want to make sure you don't have bugs and you get the feedback and you get to make some tweaks and bells and whistles before you go out there. And then COVID-19 hit. We
Yeah.
had to, like many other companies, do some pivoting. Like Sexy Travel and Hot Events was 2 channels that we were really gonna, enhance in that year and make tools that really help people log in and find what's going on for them. But nothing was going on with this cancellation. So we had to shift to some of those virtual and online plans that we had for earlier. And so we continued to wait. And now we're just at the point where we're ready to really launch the marketing, and open up the EU, because we had those IP addresses blocked for technical reasons, GDPR certification, and that kind of thing. So that's opening up in February. Little sneak. That's actually not widely known. We're going to announce around February 14th that we're ready to welcome the love from the EU. And so yeah, that's where we've been and where we're at. And we're still just like writing code every day. We have a team that's constantly securing the data and writing code. And so we really do want to hear from you guys, members and channels, what you want, because we'll build it. That's the goal, is to make it.
Congratulations to you. It's like, it's kind of like you thought of everything. And I know there's going to be more, that you think of. And I had a couple ideas as you were talking, but I'm really excited about it. Really, really, really excited about it. Congratulations. Good.
I remember the first comment I read from a member, and it was like, boy, ever since I've been, my wife and I, they each went on, got their separate profiles, been on this site. He said, I cannot tell you, our relationship sexually went from here to here in 1 year. He's like, it's like a completely different relationship. I get goosebumps again. And I remember it was like the first comments that I had gotten from members after we'd spent all the time building it and creating the brands to come on and support us in the early beginnings. And I just sat on my balcony and cried. I was like, okay, my work is done. I helped one couple. I mean, not done, but you know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, it's working.
Yeah, you felt fulfilled.
I felt so fulfilled.
You made a difference. I totally get it.
Every single person that we make a difference matters, in their lives. And we've had many, many more comments and support from members and channels since then. So it's been a very rewarding 1.5 years getting to this point. So we're really super excited about the future and collaborating with amazing people like yourself. Yeah.
So wonderful. Music to my ears. Very excited. So many ideas popped in. So many people popped into my mind as you were talking. I'm just really excited. Now so I got the anonymity, but let's underline it.
Yeah.
Let's really like for some people, or for maybe everybody, I don't know if I can make the prescription. Sometimes I hate to say everyone needs this, but everyone might need this because the nature of sexuality is so personal. It's so riddled with shame. Mm-hmm. It's so, for most people, private.
And sometimes painful for some
yes,
people.
And pain goes without saying. Do you know, I'm just going to say this to you. So I turned 73 a couple months ago, and in the 72nd cycle around the sun, I got in touch with a flashback of an abuse that I had been looking for with a under a microscope for my entire life. And never, ever did I get, I would get close. I would when everyone was alive in my family, I asked a million questions. Why am I so angry? What happened to me? And no one knew, and no one told, and no one said. And my partner was making love to me in sometime in that 72nd year. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say it happened maybe 6 months ago. So it's relatively new. Yeah. I finally saw it. Wow. And so, so I had a pain in me for all these years where I resembled an adult child of an alcoholic. I resembled an adult child of, something else, of sexual abuse. I tried getting in groups. They would say to me, were your parents alcoholics? No. Were your parents this? No. Do you have a memory of no. So even just the pain of carrying around the anger.
Yeah.
About something I didn't know why I was angry.
Right.
going to therapy after therapy, or finally finding my way into transformation because I had to get to the bottom of me.
The causation.
And so I made peace with my anger. I'm not angry. I made peace with everything. And then I'm in a relationship where I'm so loved and there's so much permission both ways. And there's so much acceptance that I don't, and so much giving. Like I've never had somebody be so generous to me as a lover. And at some point, all of a sudden, I was like kind of in the void. And then I saw something. I didn't say anything. And then I said to him, Michael, I had a vision. What? I said, I had a flashback from when I was about a year and a half or 2 years old. So, and that, I'm going to say for me, it's not as painful as somebody who, like some people I know who really know what happened.
Right.
They were they were older when they got raped, or they were forced into some sexual act by an older sister or brother, all these things.
Yeah.
Mine finally showed itself. And so the pain that people go through, just their little self hiding it, or their bigger self hiding it, or whatever. There's so much.
Right. And then there's shame attached. Not that there should be, but in so many cases when you've been violated, you internalize the shame on yourself. So of course you're not going to want to, back to the anonymity, publicly talk about something that you have feelings of shame over, even though you shouldn't feel ashamed.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, we know that.
We know adults, we shouldn't feel ashamed.
Perfectly well integrated adults know that shame is not, we know shame is a real feeling, but it isn't really a real emotion. It's actually a cultural overlap. This is my definition. A cultural overlap to keep us in some form of control, so as not to embarrass the powers that be, so as not to cause public opinion,
right?
So as not to something. Right. So shame isn't really, animals put their tail between their legs for about 2 minutes.
Right, and they're over it.
If you show the dog, a tennis ball, they don't feel shame anymore, but a person isn't like that. They carry the shame forever unless somebody helps them open the governor on that and let the steam out.
Right. And it's not even just the pain though, because there are some things that maybe are private between just you and your significant other. And we were talking about consent earlier. It might not be okay for me. I might need to talk about the subject, and it involves him in my case. But how do I do that with a third party without him feeling like, well, I wasn't ready to share that. Right. About me with my, and there's so many different ways that you can apply that. But basically, we should be able to decide who we want to share stories, anecdotes, healings, advice, or problems in our sexuality with, right? So that anonymity provides us a way to ask the real questions that you always wanted to ask, right? But who did you ask? And in a like-minded community, so you could read people's profiles and say, let's say it was a lifestyle question and somebody's swinging and considering and wondering, and one spouse wants to another. So you go and please me, and you meet some people and you see that they're in the lifestyle and they're in your age bracket and they're in your sexual preferences. And so you go, how did you do it your first time? And were you jealous? And did you have, now you can have those conversations.
Right.
It's like when you are an addict, do you go to your neighbor, hey, could you recommend a good treatment center for me? No, you go online, you Google it, right? Because you want privacy and anonymity. And so I think permission to have that is okay. It doesn't mean we're not sex positive because we want privacy as an individual. I'm talking about, sex positive is about having a positive outlook and relationship with sex, right? And so the goal is to get sex positive, and you could do that privately or publicly. We love you either way. Yeah.
So good. You've thought of a lot. It's really, really great. It's really, really great. Now, are there other people in business with you? Do you have partners, or did you come up?
I have investors. No, honestly, I had a dream 7 years ago in the middle of the night, and the whole thing was a download, every single part of it, and nothing has changed. It's built almost to scale. There's a few more additional things that need to be tweaked and added that were part of that original plan and that will be added. But in essence, it was, I don't even feel like I can claim it. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like it's like, here, I think you can do this. And I want you to be the one to do this. And I'm like, what's my family going to think? What's my kids? I'm a single mom. They were younger. You know, I have a 22-year-old, 13-year-old. I mean, I can't tell anybody at the school what I'm doing. Don't tell her what your mother does at the school. You know, like, just tell them she owns a tech company. That's all, you know. That's
right.
And so, yeah, it was scary. It was scary. Yeah. And then I just decided, after climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I was going to leave my fear on the mountain, and I couldn't forget about it. It kept nagging. And I had 5 years to think about it. And then I just said, let's do it. And ever since then, it's been pedal to the metal, make it happen.
Beautiful. So listen, everybody, even if you didn't get anything we talked about before, you got to get this one. Your dreams are worth something. You should not give up on your dreams, even if you have to go to Mount Kilimanjaro to climb a mountain to get over yourself.
Right.
You have got to live your dreams if you want to have the most fulfilling life in the world. That's why I always say to you, you know, sex and happiness, they go hand in hand, and
Absolutely.
One frees the other and builds upon the other. And this is, Heather Montgomery is a true example of this.
Oh, and you want to hear how aligned you and I really are, is that our slogan is increasing the world's happiness quotient through improving yourself. You know what I mean? It's just that's our goal. We tell people, what's your goal? Increasing the world's happiness quotient.
Listen,
because good sex equates to happiness, partially.
I wrote this book, Sex and Happiness, The Tantric Laws of Intimacy. I started writing this book almost 20 years ago. Wow. I published it in 2007. Yay. It's in its third edition or whatever. And now I teach a whole course on it, the Sex and Happiness Journey. I didn't know that these were the two most Googled words.
Interesting.
On the planet. And my show used to be called Tantra Cafe, what I said to you earlier. Right. And when I changed stations for the third time, the owner of the station that I podcast for forever now said to me, I said, I'm bored with Tantra. Right. If one more person tells me that their favorite practice is eye gazing, like I heard that already 100 times, like it's making me sick.
Right.
He said to me, why don't you change the name of your show? Let's call it Sex and Happiness. He was my mentor. And we changed the name of the show.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, by the way, those two words are the most
Googled,
searched for words in the whole entire world.
Wow.
And I just, so now instead of trying to explain Tantra to people, I say I'm a sex and happiness coach.
Perfect. It's so true.
And you're increasing the world's happiness.
Well, through people like you, though. Here's the thing. I'm not the thought leader. I'm becoming one, but I wasn't the original, I just
you made the platform.
I wanted to hear from all the people that could help me in that area of my life where I wasn't happy with my sex and sexuality.
Most people are not.
It was a thorn in my side, not a quiver in my,
yes.
arsenal. And, it was my Achilles heel, and, there was always Achilles ready to get, and so.
I love this.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so funny because you say those are the two most search words. And we were talking to a marketing person, and there's so much censorship now. And I'm like, well, let's name the next blog Love and Chocolate. Because, chocolate is supposed to have the same effects as sex, and love and happiness are kind of really cool, so sex and happiness and love and chocolate. That's you and I.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Let's find out how people sign up. How do they, if you're listening to this today or tomorrow or whenever you downloaded this, and you want to find out more because you heard yourself in these descriptions of us. You heard yourself as somebody who's like, I'm in pain, or I need anonymity, or Laurie's always talking about this and that. I don't want to go to a workshop. I want to just go be at home. So how do people find Please Me, and if people want to connect with you, how do they do that? Like, there's
Yeah.
2 questions.
For sure. So pleaseme.com with a Z. So it's pleazeme.com is the website, and membership is free. So you sign up, you register for both for brands and for individuals. And so you sign up, you take the analysis, it puts you in your world with like-minded members and gives you a feed on those topic channels I told you about earlier, the art of sex, the science of sex. And there we boost the posts from all of the amazing content providers inside the site. So we would you posted an article, we'd boost that so that if they said Tantra was something of interest to them, or they're in the Tantra world, that article would be in their feed if they're following our channels, right? And so that helps them have something to connect with when they get there. You don't have to make a friend. You can literally just follow all the channels that you're interested in.
You never have to.
You never have to if you don't want to, but if you do want to, you can make friends. But people comment on the posts and on the articles, and you can chime in there, in the public forum, because you're anonymous. And so
that's great.
Yeah. And so that's what I would say is one of the best ways to support the whole mission is to get on and get a platform and start figuring out what pleases you and how to communicate that with your potential partners, right? And understand your core values around sexuality and your beliefs around sexuality, and are they still serving you today? Because some beliefs are good when they're there at a certain time, and then they no longer serve us in our journey, right? And then the more voices that are on there sharing their stories and letting other people know about the platform, the more power it creates in our lives and in the world and in the lives of those around us. And so that's one huge way. We also have an I Fund Women crowdfunding campaign that we started, I think 2.5 months ago, where people can buy rewards packages and get cute little things with it. And it's difficult for women to raise capital. And it's really difficult for women to raise capital in tech. And it's extremely difficult for women to raise capital in the adult and then tech and then business. And I don't say that.
Great. I have somebody I'm referring to you.
Yeah. I don't say that to, we found multiple different ways to help support the mission. So if you're really passionate about this subject matter and you want to be able to help people, go to ifundwomen.com/projects/please me. I'll send you the links if you put them in your show note.
I will.
And either buy a package or donate or share it on your social media. If you don't have money, share the campaign.
Beautiful.
Those are 3 things that people can do to support us and to support themselves and not feel alone in this sexual journey and love journey of life. So,
beautiful. Heather Montgomery, thank you so much for being my guest.
Yay,
I mean, what
an
extraordinary guest. I mean, I'm like, my mouth is open.
Oh, I'll do it with you.
And thank you, Dr. Martha Tara Lee. My friend Michael calls you Dr. Lee.
Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Like, oh my goodness, you made a great connection with we two, and I want everybody to tune in next time when I'll have another amazing guest. I never know how amazing until we're actually sitting here doing it.
Yeah. Well, I want to also invite your listeners. We're going to be interviewing you on Face to Face on Please Me, which is me interviewing the innovators and educators of sexual wellness and pleasure. So they'll have another opportunity to see you being interviewed. They're probably just used to you being the interviewee. So that might be a nice little treat for them too.
They get both, because,
I've
been around for a while, but I'm really excited about this. I'm really, really excited about this. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being my loyal listeners. And you should have gotten an earful today and an eyeful today for a way for you to grow, for a way for you to get satisfaction, for a way for you to get pleasure on your terms. Mm-hmm. And that's like I feel like one of your taglines should be on your terms. So.
I like that. I love that. That's great. I'll tell the team.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you to your listeners. Hope
Thank
you enjoyed.
you.